especially, that if you use DEI and people know that black people are getting jobs because specifically over anyone else because of it and underqualified.
Bull fucking shit, dude. See, this is the, and that's why, bro, most white people, I don't think that they are actively racist. I think they're racially ignorant. I think they are brainwashed. Where do you think this guy gets that idea from? That DEI mostly helped black people. Where do you think he got that idea from? Do you think he got it by reading any books, articles, or statistics? No. He heard guys like Charlie Kirk spew this shit. The #1 recipient of said social programs year over year, generation over generation, are white people, specifically white women. Aries Spears explodes on co-host for defending Charlie Kirk comments. Okay, this sounds like it's going to be a good one. Video by Fried Plantain, or Plantain, as some people like to pronounce it. Let's dive into this video, man. You know, we are so used to seeing niggas selling out. Niggas get some motion, they get some money, partnering up with a non-black person. And it would seem like a lot of times those guys, if they don't completely sell out, they end up whitewashing the truth, scared to offend their partly white audience that would have been attracted by the white person or even the white co-host. A perfect example of that, Fresh from Fresh and Fit. But here it looks like we're about to witness the opposite unfold, and I'm here for it.
Here you are, talking about women who just happen to be of color, coincidence.
Right.
With low IQs. Mm-hmm. You didn't even finish college if you even went. So I don't need to see the chunks in the milk to know it's bad. I can smell it. So as you sit here and get ready to go, I need to see the whole quotes. He's said enough wild that you know his spirit is not in the right place.
Right.
This week's Spears and Steinberg podcast wasn't just an episode, it was a collision. Aries Spears and Andy Steinberg sat down to tackle the explosive subject of Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Right.
And what followed was less a calm conversation than a verbal wrestling match inside a burning building.
Okay, let's see it.
Aries planted himself firmly against Kirk's rhetoric, especially on race, abortion, and gun control.
Good man.
While Andy stepped into the dangerous role of devil's advocate, asking if maybe context could stop him.
Coincidence, huh? The white co-host wants to play devil's advocate on Charlie Kirk's behalf.
The sting of Kirk's most outrageous statement.
You know, I started off by saying in my post, again, as I alluded to here, I wasn't a fan, I wasn't a fan. Mm-hmm. And certainly whenever he talked about race and things within our community, but I wholeheartedly could look at him and watch him shoot down the transgender thing all day. I don't necessarily agree with his stance on abortion. It's a woman's right to do whatever she wants. I didn't agree with his stance on gun control. So the only thing I agreed with him on was the transgender thing. And you know, again, what happened to him shouldn't have happened. You should be able to voice your opinions without your life being cut short due to murder, assassination, and there were people that were celebrating, which I think is wrong. And we kind of mentioned it last night, where I told you that a lot of people were going, while I don't celebrate his death, I also am not mourning him. And you said that was fair, and I think that is fair.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of black people are, man.
Because you know, as this thing is unfolding, there are so many clips online, and you know, people cut together like compilations of things that he said, which when you take a step back and look at it, you go, dude wasn't really a good dude.
He wasn't.
And I want to play 2 clips that kind of expand on that.
He was a terrible person.
This is my other problem with death penalty. It takes too long, too many appeals. It should be public. It should be quick. It should be televised. And by the way, I would totally tune into.
Aries Spears went in immediately, calling Kirk's spirit not in the right place.
Right.
which is the podcast version of saying someone's soul failed its annual emissions test. He laid out Kirk's greatest hits of verbal disasters: black people supposedly better off enslaved, black women supposedly with less brain power, the casual dismissal of George Floyd,
Right.
and the ever-popular distrust of a black pilot. Aries didn't need context, didn't need nuance, and frankly didn't need a seatbelt. His point was simple. You don't have to drink the whole carton to know the milk has chunks. Andy Steinberg, ever the counterbalance, dared to play devil's advocate.
And you know what? I want to watch that execution. That'll
Now, the only thing I'm cutting this clip short is because I like the caption. All his wishes came true. He goes, I think an execution should be public.
Damn.
It should be quick.
Damn.
And it should be televised.
Oh, shit.
If this ain't irony, I don't know what is. Yours was quick, televised, and what was the other thing he said? It should be quick, televised, and whatever
Public,
the third thing
public.
he said is.
Public.
Yeah, he fit all three of those.
Except he wasn't convicted of a crime.
He wasn't executed. He was assassinated. But
You know,
I
somebody
get it.
basically said, pick whatever saying you want. You reap what you sow.
Right.
Chickens coming home to roost.
Right.
You die on that hill. He put so much out to the universe in terms of what people were saying was negativity. And some might use the word evil. That it just seemed like, how ironic.
Right.
See, I have a completely different take. I think that today, if you could talk to Charlie Kirk, he still stands by his gun control argument, his gun argument, the Second Amendment.
He would be race baiting this. Or
He said,
he would be stoking the fires right now.
Well,
I don't want to misquote him, but he said something to the fact of gun violence should happen. God, what did he say?
It's going to happen. Just
No, I
when
want
you have
I want
guns.
the actual quote. He said something about there should be gun deaths so many times.
sometimes there has to be gun
Collateral
deaths
damage.
because to codify the Second Amendment, basically.
Okay, so there was a cartoon where he's standing in heaven, and there's a bunch of little kids in front of him with red dots, meaning bullet holes, and they're quoting his quote back to him as he stands in front of
Right.
them with a bullet hole, red dot on his neck.
Then came the gun control irony, the elephant in the room that brought its own shotgun. Kirk had long insisted gun deaths were an inevitable price for freedom, and
Right.
that sometimes there has to be gun death. Unfortunately, his own assassination by rifle seemed to audition as Exhibit A. Aries noted the cruel symmetry. Andy countered that Kirk would probably still stand by his words. It was a debate so circular.
But you know what the crazy irony is? Conservatives, let's take immigration for instance. Conservatives will look at the violent deaths of somebody who happened at the hand of an illegal immigrant, right? Which is a tragedy. And then people on the left will say, well, the grand majority of immigrants, both illegal and those who are here illegally, are law-abiding citizens. In fact, the people who come here legally end up breaking the law less than native-born Americans. I guess because they don't take it for granted. But on the conservative side, they don't want to hear that. What they want to say is, well, the illegal immigrants shouldn't be here. And so not even one death by the hands of an illegal immigrant is acceptable. Donald Trump went around with a mother and a father who tragically lost their daughter to the hands of some illegal immigrants who committed a heinous crime against her. I believe they were from somewhere from South America. He used them in their campaign to make the arguments for why we need stricter immigration policies. But I want you to guess what kills more children every year: guns or illegal immigrants? It's funny, when it comes to letting brown people into this country, one death is too much. But when it comes to guns, no amount of deaths is ever enough to motivate any kinds of policy changes.
But I still think that he believes in that. I think he believes in it because we can say this. And listen, I don't know where I stand on gun control. I really don't. I would like to be more educated before I say anything, because it is different. The gun that he was killed with wouldn't have been in any gun control laws. It was a long gun. It was a hunting rifle. It can be used for hunting. It's
Does
long.
it make a difference if a scope is on it or not?
No. So that is not.
What do you mean it doesn't make a difference if a scope is on it or not? I mean, definitely the scope helps with hunting, but it also makes it easier to line somebody up from 200 yards, right?
that wouldn't fall under that. But my point is that I think that he would say, he said what he meant. And I think that he knew very well that he could be someone. He's had death threats. I'm sure that he knew that he could be one of those people, but he still said it, and I think he meant it. His life wasn't above the laws of the land, that he believed in the Constitution, and that he was not above it. That if he was one of the people to be taken out.
Yeah, it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment. He's not saying that
What's he
people
saying?
need to be shot.
He said,
or killed for it to
unfortunately.
happen. Unfortunately, of course, if you're going to have guns, there's going to be guns deaths.
Yeah, he's basically saying we have to be okay with children getting shot, right? We have to be okay with that.
People need to be shot.
He said,
or killed for it to
unfortunately.
happen. Unfortunately, of course, if you're going to have guns, there's going to be guns deaths. And to be honest, at least he's being honest about it. But
Well, listen, I'm not. I don't want to. I'm not minimizing. When you see a child that unnecessarily dies, it's a horrible, horrible thing, and it's a gun death, and you go, "That's horrible." More children are killed in car accidents throughout this country. I'm not saying, but no one's gonna yell at. We need to get rid of cars. Everybody, we should only have trains.
Cars, but you can put tons of safety precautions on them.
You know what?
And nobody-
but I'm sorry, it's not in the Constitution. It's in the Constitution, codified in the Constitution, that we have a right to those guns.
But
Yeah, but the Constitution has been amended many times over. So just because it's in the Constitution doesn't mean that it can't be adjusted.
But car accidents are just that.
Right.
Accidents.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting into a car going, I'm going to mow down a school full of kids. Somebody is going, I'm going to grab my gun, I'm going to go into a school and deliberately kill kids.
Okay.
Exactly.
What made the podcast fascinating wasn't just the disagreement over Kirk's statements. It was the raw, jagged discomfort over what to do with a figure like him after death. Aries rejected celebrating or mourning, landing somewhere in the Switzerland of emotions. Andy seemed more willing to acknowledge Kirk's debate skills, even while not defending his most toxic takes.
So here's another reason why black people weren't necessarily crying over him.
For how they feel about his death, especially minority communities. Black people are better off as slaves. Black women have less brain processing power, which is crazy because we're the highest educated demographic in the country, by the way. 10-year-olds should have to give birth to their rapist babies. Execution should be public, quick, and televised. And children should be able to watch. Black people are only in high-up positions because of affirmative action, not because they are qualified. He called George Floyd a scumbag who is unworthy of the attention he's receiving. He said that gun deaths are an inevitable price worth paying to safeguard the Second Amendment. He told Taylor Swift that she needs to submit to her husband. He said transgenderism is a mental disorder. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. He called Islam a danger to the United States. He said Jewish communities have been pushing hatred against whites. And there's many, many more.
So again, this is why people are like, still was a piece of shit.
If you just take those little snippets out of what he said, though, of course you're going to get some fucked up shit.
That's the problem that is you're seeing this is white nationalism, a little bit white supremacy wrapped up nicely with a suit and a smile. He's telling you all those things, but he's also doing it in a nice
No,
upbeat
it's not just a
manner.
nice way, because those things are snippets of what his whole conversation is.
No,
So
no,
wait,
no.
why you do that? So are you saying that we needed to hear the whole quotes?
Right.
To think of them
Okay,
differently or see them differently?
I hope that he's qualified as a black pilot.
Okay.
He was talking about especially that if you use DEI and people know that black people are getting jobs because specifically over anyone else because of it and underqualified.
Bull fucking shit, dude. See, this is the and that's why, bro. Most white people, I don't think that they are actively racist. I think they're racially ignorant. I think they are brainwashed. They're deceived. But they allow themselves to become puppets of white supremacy and racism by believing these things. Where do you think this guy gets that idea from? That DEI mostly helped black people. Where do you think he got that idea from? Do you think he got it by reading any books, articles, or statistics? No. He heard guys like Charlie Kirk spew this shit. The reality is, ever since social programs were implemented in this country, the #1 recipient of said social programs year over year, generation over generation, are white people, specifically white women. For instance, here's a major study that was conducted by Alexandra Kalev, Frank Dobbin, Aaron Kelly. It shows you what pedigree of university these people come from, right? And just to disarm any people who just have hangups about shit like this, they're all white, okay? Here is Alexandra Kalev. Here is Frank Dobbin, Harvard University graduate. And here is Aaron Kelly. You know, at this point, I think there are probably people who starting to suspect that ChatGPT was made by a black man, because it's like every time you ask it some shit, it's like, yeah, they racist. Yeah, it's fucked up. They hoeing you niggas, right? And so, yeah, this was not a study done by some black people that went to fucking DeVry University, right? These are white people who went to Ivy League universities, or at least prestigious universities. Here's what they say. We find a clear pattern in the data. Structures establishing responsibility, affirmative action plans, diversity committees, and diversity staff positions are followed by significant increases in managerial diversity. Programs that target managerial stereotyping through education and feedback, diversity training, and diversity evaluations are not followed by increases in diversity. Programs that address social isolation among women and minorities, networking and mentoring programs are followed by modest changes. The effects of these initiatives vary across groups, with white women benefiting most, followed by black women. Black men benefit least. We also find that responsibility structures make training, performance evaluations, networking, and mentoring programs more effective. Now, if the data tells us that white women benefit the most from DEI policies and black men benefit the least, what Charlie should have said, when I go on a plane and if I see a white female pilot, I'll say to myself, boy, I hope she's qualified. Because they're the people who benefit the most. But who does he target? The people who benefit the least? Black men. Because Charlie Kirk is a racist, and he's speaking to and for racists. And racism isn't founded on data, facts, or evidence. It is founded on just hatred for a group of people. And so he was able to build himself a multi-million-dollar career lying through his teeth to white people, and they just ate it up because that's all they want to hear. That's all they care about. They don't need actual data or statistics. Now, here comes along this white guy who I probably think isn't racist and is well-meaning, but he's so, the brainwashing is so deep and widespread. He thinks he's being charitable right here.
Especially that if you use DEI and people know that black people are getting jobs because specifically over anyone else because of it and underqualified.
So we now know that's a lie, right? But secondly, the people who benefited from DEI, including white women, it was not reflective at all of their qualification skills. DEI didn't lower the required amount of hours flying in order to get your pilot's license, for instance, right? This is how white people think DEI policies work. Thanks to people like Charlie Kirk. A white guy goes to get his pilot's license. He has to fly, I'm just making up a number here, 4,000 hours. A black guy goes, he only has to fly 2,000 hours. Then American Airlines will hire him. What? No. What DEI did was allow both the white guy and the black guy who both had the 4,000 hours to now be able to compete in a more fair way in regards to getting a job. Equally qualified. But as a nation, we are still growing out of segregation, Jim Crow, slavery, and racism. We are still growing out of a civilization or a society that has actively tried to cut black people off from career opportunities. And we see even when the American government makes these meager attempts at trying to rectify the sins of the past, we see even when things like DEI policies are put in place, who gets to benefit the most? White women.
going to make you uncomfortable, or that you have black pilots, there's no DEI, and you know that they got the job just because of that.
The conversation veered briefly into Kirk's
dude.
lack of a college
That's actually sick, man, that he thinks that's how DEI works.
degree, which Aries found ironic, given Kirk's habit of belittling Ivy League graduates. If credibility were a credit card, Kirk would have been swiping a library card while mocking people holding black Amex. But Andy defended Kirk's intelligence, even if uncredentialed, pointing out that smart people don't need diplomas to cause chaos.
Right.
And somebody
Listen, if you don't like affirmative action, we need to get rid of all of those university programs that are in place that make it easier for people who are children of people who went to your university getting into college, because that is affirmative action for white people. It is taking advantage of the fact that you have been disproportionately given a leg up going all the way back to slavery. It's way more likely that you as a white person, your great grandparent or your grandparent went to a university than a black person who, when their grandparents were in school during segregation and black people weren't even allowed. Like you see how it's fucked up? As a white guy, you could be fucking barely a good student, but because your dad or your grandfather went to some prestigious university, you're now going to be taken and let into the school more so than a black person who has better grades. Affirmative action comes along to try and level the playing fields a little bit, and people start crying about that shit.
Somebody had a nice retort to that, talking about their brain power. All of them either graduated from Harvard, Yale.
Yeah.
You know where he graduated
Exactly.
from? Harper College.
Right.
Who?
I don't even think he went to college.
He didn't. He dropped out of college. You know, and that's the thing. Even conservatives like Thomas Sowell, he acknowledges that if a person ends up in a university in part due to something like affirmative action, they end up at an Ivy League institute. Because that's the thing. It's not just about how much it costs to go to these universities or their prestigious name. These universities, it's literally harder. It is harder to get a degree from these Ivy League universities. Their academic standards are a lot higher, which is why it carries weight in the professional world when you can say, I went to Yale, I went to Harvard. And what Thomas Sowell will acknowledge, who is a conservative, a sellout, what he will acknowledge is that sometimes people, they end up in these universities because of affirmative action. And I don't even know how much of this, what he's saying is true, but let's humor it here. They end up struggling in these universities because the academic demands are just too much. They would have been far better off going to your typical state university, for instance.
Quote, a growing body of empirical data shows that black students mismatched with the colleges or universities they attend fail or drop out more often than other students. The problem is not that these black students are unqualified. The problem is that they are mismatched with the college or university that has admitted them for the sake of, quote, diversity. Yeah. Now, what do you mean by mismatched?
Well, I'll give a simple example. When I was teaching at Cornell back in the 60s, the average SAT score of black students at Cornell was at the 75th percentile. The average SAT for the white students in liberal arts was at the 99th percentile. Mm-hmm. We all taught to the students who were at the 99th percentile. Students who were at the 75th percentile had a hard time trying to keep up. They didn't have the reading speed, they didn't have the mathematical facility, and so on. Had these very same students gone to some place where the other students were at the 75th percentile, they'd have had no problem. Half the black students at Cornell at that time were on academic probation. It was even worse at MIT. The average black student, when this study was done some years ago at MIT, scored in the top 10% nationwide in math. They scored in the bottom 10% at MIT.
So the point is, there are a lot of very good schools in America where they could have gone and been right in the swim of elite institutions, just not at MIT.
Well, the fact that these women that Charlie Kirk spoke so negatively about in terms of their brain processing power, they have degrees from Ivy League institutions. That speaks for itself that these people are incredibly intelligent and deserving of the positions that they hold And yet, even then, they still have to acknowledge that if it weren't for affirmative action or DEI-like policies, they probably wouldn't have the job that they have today, even though they're so highly qualified.
Charlie Kirk.
He didn't go to college.
Harper, somebody said Harper College.
He never graduated.
He
from
might
college.
have.
Oh, say that part again.
He never graduated.
He never
He
graduated.
talks about that's one of his talking
Okay,
points.
so what right does he have to say to women who have graduated from Harvard and Yale their brain power, and you didn't even finish?
As far as I know, he didn't even go. He started a foundation.
You're not making the argument better.
Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if he went or not. The dude is clearly like really smart.
But no, here's what I'm talking
No,
about.
he's not.
Let me
He's
get to
not.
my-
He's
to
a
what I-
liar. He's a liar with a silver tongue. That's it. What makes Charlie smart? What makes him, like a genius? I don't think the guy's dumb. I'm sure if he studied and applied himself, he would have probably averaged A's and B's like just about anybody else who goes to university and takes it seriously. I'd say a guy like Charlie Kirk probably had maybe slightly above average intelligence. That's what I'm getting from a guy like him. But if he was truly intelligent, either one of these two things are true. Either Charlie Kirk was not that smart, which is why he was so easily manipulated by the various ideological camps that used him as a puppet to further their agendas, or he was just straight up evil. Either he was that, or he actually was incredibly intelligent and knew what he was doing. He knew he was lying. He knew he was deceiving people. He knew he was trying to manipulate people. And so you're not helping. It's better off that he's actually dumb. It's better off. It makes him a better person. He was just a useful idiot. But if you want to push a narrative that a guy like Charlie Kirk was actually very intelligent, then you're also admitting that he was evil, because he did this shit for a living. I can excuse the average white person or even the average black person who doesn't know about the various things that I bring forward in terms of evidence, right? Statistics and data. Why? Because this is not what you do for a living, right? You don't talk about these things for a living. But Charlie Kirk did. How can he go to university campuses and debate people on these topics and spread lies without looking into the information? He had to look into the information, and he saw the truth, and he still chose to lie about it, which makes him extra evil and extra racist.
Here you are, talking about women who just happen to be of color, coincidence, with low IQs. You didn't even finish college if you even went. So I don't need to see the chunks in the milk to know it's bad. I can smell it. So as you sit here and get ready to go, I need to see the whole quotes. He said enough wild that his spirit is not in the right place.
Right.
Well,
When the Ukrainian woman thing happened, he was actually really outraged by that as well.
Oh, of course.
He would start throwing out the statistics. Black people have this high crime rate.
You need to see the whole quote based on what you just heard about him saying about Jews.
yeah.
You need to see the whole quote.
Because he says some Jewish communities. There are some Jewish communities that have
Isn't it funny?
issues.
He got issues with blacks, women, trans, anything from narcissists to racists to what's the other
Misogynist.
misogynist. I don't need to see the chunks in the milk. You
Right.
can't smell it.
Yeah, man. What's sad is these people talk about how they don't see color, they don't see race, yet they constantly live in a delusional world where everybody is different intrinsically because of their color and because of their race. The reality is Charlie Kirk was one of the many faces of white supremacy. And white supremacy knows that the only reason why they have more power, they have more access to resources, they have more is just because their ancestors took it by force. Their more recent ancestors put policies in place to help them retain it. And if other groups were able to start to take a piece of that pie, the playing field would level. And that completely destroys the foundation of white supremacy. White supremacy is born out of white power. It's born out of white people having things that other people don't have. And so therefore, they come to the conclusion that they are superior. Oh, look at how many white people own their own houses, for instance, compared to black people. Look how much money we have. Look how much power we have. Look how much influence we have over the world. This, therefore, must be evidence of the fact that we are superior. But if I get rich by breaking into my neighbor's house and taking all of his shit and then taking his children and forcing them to work for me for free and then stacking that bread, does that somehow make me superior to them? Of course not. And I know that, and they know that. But you know who won't know that? My grandchildren. When they're born into a big mansion that I built off of that stolen money, and they look across the street and see the descendants of the people I stole from and see how much bigger and nicer his house is, he's going to think that there is something intrinsic about him and his family and the stock that he came from that rationalizes in some moral way why he has more than them. This is the same kind of logic that sexism is built on, for instance. Men have always dominated over women because men are stronger than women. This, of course, leads to the accumulation of power and resources in the hands of men as opposed to women. Thousands, if not millions of generations go by, and then we are born into a society where men hold most of the power, which then makes it easy for us to accept this idea that men are superior to women. You know, it's so funny. I had this exact conversation with my wife about, white supremacy and why a lot of men believe they're superior to women almost a year ago. But at that point in time, I was still a Christian. And so even though I was able to articulate this logic in regards to race, I just couldn't allow myself to apply it to the dynamics between men and women because I was a Christian. And the Bible simply tells me that men are supposed to rule over women, right? A woman is not to talk in church. A woman is to be completely submissive to her husband. It is not a partnership of two individuals who respect each other equally and see each other as just two adults, the way how you see one of your boys as like we're equals. It don't matter if I make more money than you. It doesn't matter if I'm physically stronger than you. Reality is I'm a man, you're a man. We're friends. We're equals. I got to give you the same amount of respect that I expect you to give to me. Don't matter who make more money. Don't matter da-da-da. That's not how we treat our women. And it's all grounded in the fact that a million years ago, you could just knock a woman over the head and drag her into your cave and now she's your wife. That's it. You better fucking cook and clean. Women weren't allowed to not have children so that they could focus on building some kind of wealth for themselves because doing hard manual labor isn't the only way to accumulate money or influence. Women were expected to start getting pregnant in their teens and to keep getting pregnant all the way until they can't get pregnant no more. But y'all let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out.